My opponent says that animals include all members of the species Animalia. I accept that animals include humans. This definition actually completes my definition of testing requiring the use of animals, which my opponent dropped. Also, my opponent falls short of complete analysis when he missed the word requires. My policy, banning testing requiring the use of animals, eliminates tests required to use animals by law. My case and the benefits of my policy surround the alternatives to testing, alternatives which my opponent does not refute and therefore accepts as valid replacements for animal testing. Specifically, my evidence showing that in vitro testing can replace in vivo live animal testing. With this alone, I am able to gain an advantage by streamlining and improving the outcomes of drug and chemical tests. At the same time, testing on human cells grown in vitro and simulations of human tissue in silico remove any consideration of paternalism. Thus, he is unable to achieve any benefit from using the PIC to gain an escape from paternalistic behavior. Now the PIC. Observation 1. No net competition. The PIC does nothing. His plan text is to ban all forms of testing unless the animal, humans included, grants consent. My plan text, the plan he includes in his counterplan, is to ban all tests where the use of animals is required. Required means compulsory. The animals in these tests are required to be tested because of federal regulations which require animals to be exposed to chemicals and drugs to prove toxicity or safety. By shifting to a consent basis, only the tests required by law would be banned, which is the pro plan. On this ground, you should reject the PIC as non-competitive. Additionally, the PIC has a significant net disadvantage over the plan. My opponent said that animals, human and non-human, are capable of granting consent. I agree and concede that animals have the physical ability to consent to testing, in that all animals, as defined by my opponent, share the trait of self-determination and free will. Edward Fieser, philosophy professor, Loyola, 2004, quote, "We can flourish only if we practice these virtues governing practical and theoretical reason. Given that human beings are also by nature social animals, we can only flourish if we practice also those virtues governing the interaction of other beings. The moral life, then, is only fully possible under conditions wherein the individual is capable of self-direction, the absence of coercion and interference from outside forces," end quote. This presents a problem for the op, as he has not proven that these animals have the ability to give consent in a lab environment. He said that animals give consent when he or she squeals in pain, therefore asking for painkillers and consenting to further testing. The problem is this isn't consent, this is dissent. The moral act is to cease the test at the dissent of the tested and not drug them into compliance. This again is the very paternalistic coercion that the op objects to. The op links to paternalism, not the pro. From the International Encyclopedia of Organizational Studies, 2008, quote, "International conventions define the following practices as forms of slavery: loss of free will, appropriation of labor power, and violence or the threat of violence," end quote. The problem is for the op that these animals are raised in captivity, bred for testing, and are never subjected to any environment where they can exercise free will. While they are capable of consent, they are unable to consent because they exist in a state of slavery. They are denied free will. They are appropriated to perform some test for the investigator and are subjected to violence or killed to complete the test. Animals do not voluntarily wander into a clinic to be tested, and humans would not voluntarily subject themselves to tests to prove product toxicity or safety. None of this happens unless they are coerced. The ultimate form of paternalism. This turns the PIC. The double bind is now turned. The op cannot both equate humans to animals and then condone holding them in a lab environment and conducting testing. The only way that he can come up with animals for voluntary testing is to capture, breed, or coerce them. The same can be said for human animals. They do not voluntarily walk into a chamber to be gassed with a chemical or injected with an unknown substance in order to prove its toxicity. Thus, a ban on live testing and replacement with an in vitro testing model and silico model is both the moral and pragmatic solution. For these reasons, because animal testing won't happen without some form of coercion or captivity, and because the pro has a net competitive prima facie case for replacement of animal testing that goes dropped entirely, I ask you to affirm. Thank you.